Well, welcome to today's Principles of Good Health. And it may be the end of May in the UK, but it's really important that we still continue to focus on vitamin D and vitamin D supplementation. But today I actually wanted to talk about whether we should or we should not include vitamin K. Now, if you've paid any attention to taking vitamin D as a supplement, through the winter months, you may have noticed that more and more supplements now include vitamin K2. And I just want to give you a little bit of an explanation around when K2 is included, why you would need it. Does it matter if your supplement has vitamin K or not? And to give you an explanation around that, because it starts to get a little bit confusing. But first of all, let's just focus very briefly on vitamin D. I think it's absolutely essential that if you live in the UK or these parts of the Northern Hemisphere where we get very little exposure to sunshine, that we take vitamin D3 all year round. It's because we get very little sunshine directly on our skin. We need to be exposing our skin without suntan lotion for about 20 minutes a day, where the skin can go ever so slightly pink, not sunburnt, so that we can absorb the vitamin D. It's activated through the skin and created through the activation of the sunlight on our skin. Of course, we need vitamin D for many, many roles in the body, from immunity and autoimmunity and protecting us from various infections, contributory factor towards prevention of cancer, and towards things like osteoporosis prevention, taking care of our bone health. It's just so much we understand about the importance of vitamin D, hence why we really need to supplement it in the UK and these northern hemispheres all year round. Now, at a basic level, I tend to think about taking 1,000 IU of vitamin D. And at that amount, I don't get myself too concerned about whether it comes with vitamin K. But if you were to take a higher dose, and I'll come on to talk about why you might need a higher dose, you might start to take something that's, say, 4,000 IU of vitamin D. And at that point, I think it starts to become very important that we add in vitamin K2. Now, just a little bit of science around why we need vitamin K and what vitamin D is doing with regards to calcium and the impact it can have on the body. We think the more calcium we get, that's a good thing. We think the calcium leads to better bone health, but to get calcium into bones needs a number of different cofactors. So starting first of all, if you've got calcium in your food, we've got to get the calcium from the gut and into the bloodstream. And that's where vitamin D3 has a very important role to play in helping the absorption from the intestinal lining and through into the bloodstream. That's where vitamin D is very, very important. But once you've got vitamin D into the bloodstream, it then, of course, needs to find its way into bones. And there are a number of cofactors that are very important to help encourage that. And one of those is vitamin K. Vitamin K has a role to play in a process that creates healthy bone and what I call building bones rather than breaking down bones. Vitamin K is involved with that. And it also helps to prevent and protect against calcium being deposited in your arteries and calcifying there. If that happens, that can be a contributory factor to your arteries furring up and narrowing. So therefore, calcium can have a role to play in cardiovascular disease, and we don't tend to think about that. So if you're taking a higher and higher amount of vitamin D, which is encouraging a greater uptake of calcium into the bloodstream, we need to make sure that that calcium is not being deposited in the arteries, and as much as possible that is needed is being created and absorbed and taken up into bone. So when we get to a 4,000 IU of vitamin D3, that's when it's important to start thinking about vitamin K2 as well. And that's when you'll probably start to see it in supplements. So I've got a couple of supplements here on my desk. You won't be able to read this very well. You might be able to just see that. That's a Viridian vitamin D3. This one is Bare Biology. You might be able to tell from these that both of these are sprays. And I love sprays because you can spray them on the inside of your cheek and it bypasses the digestive tract. The vitamin D gets absorbed straight into your bloodstream, which is fantastic. So this Viridian D3 is just D3. It's actually a 2000. No, I beg your pardon. It's a 1000 IU. So for Iridian D3, I often use a Better U D3 spray of 1000 IU. I think that's a good standard optimum amount of vitamin D3 to take. This one from Bare Biology is a higher concentration of vitamin D. It is actually 2000 IU of vitamin D3. And anything from 2000, say, to 4000, you might start thinking about adding the K3, and that's got K3 added to it. Now, how on earth do you actually know how much vitamin D you should supplement? I strongly recommend to my clients to do a very simple finger prick blood test. I've been looking online, there's quite a few companies have these available now, usually around the 30-35 pound marker. You shouldn't need to spend any more than that to get a reliable vitamin D test result. One of the ones I use tends to be an NHS department that offers the test privately. If you do Google vitamindtest.org, it should take you to this NHS department. Currently costs, I think, about £31. The results come through fairly quickly, very simple to do, pretty painless, and well worth doing the test to get your results. Now, when the results come through, that's when it needs another level of interpretation, because the results will only come back if you use that particular test, saying anything that's 50 nmol per litre, that's a measure we use in the UK, anything that's 50 and above is adequate. Well, adequate's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for optimal levels for nutritional and nutrients, optimal level, not too high and not too low. And I think we start to get into the optimal level when we're at 100 nmol per litre, up to 150. We don't want to start to get higher than that. So if you get to 100, that's good. If you get to 150, that's very optimal. Don't really want to be going above that. And you, therefore, another reason for testing is to make sure you're not too low and not too high. If you're round about that sort of 100 nmol per litre at a really good level, you may not need to supplement through the summer months, but with so little exposure to vitamin D, I think a 1000 IU is a pretty standard amount to take to keep it at where you want it to be. You can find vitamin D checkers online that will look at your results. It may ask you for your weight, it may ask you what optimal level you're looking for, and it will give you a calculation. But I'm very happy to advise on that. I do advise my clients on what to take to make sure you're getting the best product out there, the right level of supplement for your needs. So I hope you found that really useful today. As we approach the summer months, hoping we're going to get some sunshine, but why thinking about vitamin D is still important, why we need to think about vitamin K, is it important or not important? I hope that's provided some clarity for you today. Thank you so much for watching.